Okay, in 2014, Hong Kong released a list of 480 specific elements that it wished to acknowledge as items of the city's intangible cultural heritage. I came across that list, by the way, through your website, Kung Fu Tea, so thanks, Mr. Ben Judkins. And alongside other martial arts, the category of social practices, rituals, and festive events includes 3 different Wing Chun traditions. There are more martial arts there. The Bao Fa Lian, the Snake Rain, and the Yip Man lineage. And furthermore, Cantonese, so the language spoken in the southern province of Guangdong. And 4 character idiomatic expressions are also listed within the category of oral traditions and expressions. And what I want to do is I want to make the intangible, which is translated in Chinese as wu xing, which means actually having no form. And it can also be, or it can also mean invisible. I want to make it at least a little bit more tangible and more visible. So I'm going to dive right into what I'm going to be talking about, which is the Wing Chun mottos that are usually in the form of rhymed formulas. And there's one that even includes intangible, if you want to translate it that way. And it's from the Wing Chun song. It's a couplet of 2 4-character idiomatic expressions. And the first part reads, face the tangible or the visible, and wu xing da yin, if it's intangible, invisible, strike at the shadow. So sometimes when I look at the material, I feel like striking at shadows, but find some interesting information about all the cultural elements involved. Okay, so the presentation is broken down into 3 parts. First of all, I'll give a quick overview over Chinese oral traditions and expressions. Then we're going to look at Yip Man Wing Chun's rhymes and how they fall into the categories of these oral traditions and idiomatic expressions. And then I'll give a short corpus-based analysis of selected rhymes, interpretations, ways to translate them, and so on. Okay. First of all, Chinese oral traditions, they include oral formulas as mnemonic devices. That's a very classical way, for example, to teach children how to read and write, and at the same time indoctrinate them in the Confucianist thinking. For example, the 3-character classic that has been in use, you can see the author mentioned above, since the Song Dynasty until the 1960s in Taiwan, and it's coming back into use even in the People's Republic right now, with many classical, traditional Confucianist schools, private schools mainly, that parents send their children to in search of a Chinese identity. And well, the first part reads, "Men at the birth are naturally good," which is a Confucian notion uttered by Mencius at that time, a very famous Confucian philosopher. And it goes on emphasizing the importance of education, for example. It even mentions the worldview of that time. Many may be familiar with the 5-element theory, and the 5 elements, they're mentioned here too. So this has been the Chinese cosmology since the Han Dynasty, so children will learn that by heart. And then it goes on, this is Confucian Virtues. I guess you can just read the English translations I put there, because if I get too much into detail, I think the time won't be sufficient. But if anybody has any question in between, I'm ready to answer that as well. But this is to give a quick overview anyway. So there's these oral traditions, for example, bringing up children, teaching them the right philosophy, teaching them how to read and write. And the Sanzi, for example, is composed of 1,200 characters. So this is a primer for Chinese children. They have to learn these 1,200 characters first to be able to read and write very elementary texts, very elementary stuff. Okay, then we go right to the Taoist tradition of gehung, and this is something Stanley E. Hanning wrote on gehung. Gehung, a very famous Taoist alchemist, who mentions these oral traditions of mnemonic devices to help the learning process of anything. He mentions it in connection to martial arts, and he talks about oral formulas, so-called koujie, and secret methods, the mifa, that are expressed in those rhymes, and that, as the highlighted part at the bottom of the text says, that were often unintelligible or unclear to those outside the particular group that used them in training. They were brought to life by the hands-on instruction of one's teacher. So another way to make the intangible tangible expressed here. Okay, this is the original gehung text. The parts highlighted in red is where he talks about the formula, 解有口诀要术, which means the martial arts he learned before, the single saber, the saber and shield, and the double halberd, they all have rhymes that go along with their practice and with the learning process. And they all have secret methods. Okay, in general, since that list that was published by the city of Hong Kong includes the 4-character idiomatic expressions, which are called chengyu, or can be translated as set phrases in Chinese. Well, they're not really unique to Cantonese. They're very common in the Chinese language anyway. And it's 4-character expressions that tell a whole story, actually. It's a very elegant way to tell a whole story, and it's, okay, hurry up. Okay, so one very popular one is pulling on the plant shoots to help them grow, spoil things through impatience, and so on. So I'm gonna go right through the Yip Man Wing Chun rhymes. This is the whole corpus of Yip Man Wing Chun's rhymes, starting with the rules of conduct and ending with the mixed mottos. All in all, it's a total character count of 1,427 Chinese characters, in comparison with the Sanzi that only has 1,200. So this is a very big corpus, and it's just about one martial art, just about the Yip Man style, in fact. Into the category of 4-character idiomatic expressions fall 2 of the corpus's parts, which is the so-called fist formulas, the Chun, and the so-called mixed mottos, the Zajie. And these only in part. The fist formulas that are said to have been created by Dr. Leung Zhan, but this is something I was only told. There's no other evidence that I have come across so far. They fall completely into this category. This is the probably most popular part of them, very familiar to anybody who's practicing Wing Chun, the Loi Lao Hui Sung, La Sao Jek Chung, retain what is coming in and send off what is retreating, rush in upon loss of hand contact, which is rather tactical advice. The same here. Apart from tactical advice, we also have psychological advice, physical advice on how to use the body structure. And the underlined part here, for example, is found in the Koujie in this form, but it's at the same time a very common expression in the Chinese language in general. It might seem unusual, but this is actually how it can be found in the Chinese-English dictionary Wen Lin by John de Francis. Anticipate the enemy or take the initiative in order to subdue the enemy. And it comes from the Hanshu, so it's a citation from ancient history. Then there's more tactical advice. For example, go ahead steadily and strike sure blows, shoot with unfailing accuracy, which might seem unique to a martial art, but this is very common as well. It's a set phrase, each for itself. Go ahead steadily and strike sure blows, go about things steadily and surely. And we have that with many more of the fist formulas. Here's another very interesting part, because it says the second part, which says 十倍板功, being alert and adapting to the situation allows maximum result for minimum effort. This is what the second part says, the 十倍板功. But this has been altered. The actual Chengyu reads 十半功倍, and it means get twice the result with half the effort. Very common in the Chinese language to use that phrase. And it obviously has been altered not to break the rhyme of the Wing Chun song, because you can see the parts highlighted in Cantonese, the red ones. Okay, they all rhyme, so you have to, it's the second line, you have to put the gung at the end, and it does not even change the meaning. And as you can see, the parts, the syllables highlighted in black, this is the Mandarin transcription, the one above is the Cantonese transcription, and they all rhyme. It's feng gong dong, and in Mandarin it would be feng gong dong, which is again a hint that the poem was written by a Cantonese speaker, probably. Okay, there is more. Wie viel Zeit habe ich noch? Eine Minute? Okay. Okay, this just, okay, let's see if I find something very, okay. Well, anyway, the whole set of the Chuanjie, apart from physical advice that that tells you to support your hands or complement your hands with your body posture and make good use of lines and positions. There's also psychological advice, as mentioned or as expressed here. A strong attitude and martial appearance already provide an advantage over your enemy. Or have confidence and you will dominate the situation. Then there is one that is very, very interesting regarding its interpretation. Some may interpret it as psychological advice, others as physical advice. I think both are correct to a certain extent. 拳有心法 or 拳有心法. The fist comes from the heart, which can mean center, so it comes from the center of your chest. Or boxing, because the fist can mean boxing, the whole martial art in itself comes from the mind, heart and mind. They're actually interchangeable when you translate xin. Another physical advice that might be very widely known is the li you di qi or let you dei hei concept. Power comes from the ground. Then we have a citation of Sun Tzu, which has been altered as well. And then maybe it's known to many who read the Sun Tzu in a translation. This is the English translation by Lionel Giles. And here we go. This is what I would like to end the presentation, the hurried presentation with. This is from the so-called mixed mottos. This is, there is no succession in studying, the reasonable one, the one who arrives is first. So I hope this was a very quick overview since we lost some time at the beginning. And yeah, I'm open to questions, suggestions, whatever. No problem.
Just keeping an eye
okay.
Not enough time to discuss that, to get a little bit deeper.
Okay.
Thank you very much. I have a question about I'm interested in the occurrence of rhyme changes, or expression changes of wording to fit the rhyme or to fit the meter. Are there other instances of this, and do they have any implications for, for the meaning or the interpretation? Because if these rhymes are used as pedagogical tools, but you've had to force them into a rhythmic and rhyming box, isn't there a tension? And are there any other examples within the text that might?
I've not come across any others so far, but I haven't got that far yet. I could imagine that. This one was so obvious because it's such a common one, but there may be others. I have not gotten that far.
See, I don't read Chinese, and I haven't read many of the Tai Chi classes. I used to study Tai Chi quite a lot. And so you read a book in English, like a manual or a book about, and they'll have selected excerpts and then a gloss and interpretation on them. And it's just interesting to me about really how far away these things could have moved.
Okay.
Possibly because of not knowing anything about the original context, but also because of them being forced into rhythmic patterns. That might be helpful.
I guess in this case, it does not really alter the meaning. It seems to be very clear to native speakers what is meant by that. Maybe because it's such the original four-character expression. Well, with the translation, in this case, it's not too complicated either. But I think the important point is that one has to keep in mind that many people were not that good at reading and writing, especially those that learned Kung Fu. There was some amongst them that probably did not even read or write at all. So if you wanted them to learn something by heart, the most important thing was to make it rhyme, so they could easily remember it.
I've got two questions. The first one is, are these examples that you showed, are they like exclusive for this style of Wing Chun that you teach or practice, or are they like for every Wing Chun?
The corpus in that form is the corpus of the Yip Man school, but there are many parts that can be found not only in Wing Chun, even in other martial arts.
And another question would be, how are these rhyme formulas, the small poems, how are they communicated or transferred? Is it something like that the student gets a small textbook where they are written down, or are they subsequently given by the teacher, or do everybody has like together recite them together? Or?
I was anticipating that question, so I'm very thankful for that. Now, the thing is, in our school, for example, you get a written copy once you enter the stage where you're allowed to teach yourself. So once you become a Sifu yourself, you're given the whole corpus and you're given an interpretation of it, so that you can remember the whole thing when you start teaching. What I found out only at that point was that from the very beginning, my teacher was watching us practicing, and he would cite parts of the song, but he would translate them into English. So only later did I find out that he was actually telling us concepts and sayings from this so-called Wing Chun song, but it was not that I knew that there even was the whole poem, that there was a whole poem on the subject. And yeah, the translation is open to interpretation as well, so it's not always easy. You did not always get the point, and you did not even get that he was that this was a concept he was not just making up himself when he was teaching you.
I mean, you know now the translation.
Yeah.
To what extent does the Chinese give meaning to you? So, are you just then learning to recite it originally?
Well, with me, and that's why I chose the subject. With me, I'm being a sinologist by training. This is very, very interesting, and by now, every time I read it, I come up with a different translation or with a new way how to translate it, and I never get the whole meaning I'd wish to express through that translation. But that's the problem with Chinese anyway, all the time.
As a follow-up, but is it normal for Chinese teachers to know it that specifically without being a synonym?
Probably not. So you're given a translation too, but when I was given the Chinese text with an English translation, I was told to better translate it myself.
Yeah, Martin, thank you. Mostly questions of origin, finalized complexity. First question, can you finalize complexity? So it was an idea of the origin. And the second question is, have you also analyzed the underlying structure of these forms? In the sense of, is there a certain topological or rhetorical structure like paradox, which is dominant?
Okay. Can you repeat the first question?
The first question is the question, is there a origin, a date or period?
That's a huge problem. As with the mixed mottos, it is safe to say that any generation has added something, because there are some that are attributed to Ip Man, for example, that have just been added, and they have no specific form whatsoever. They come in all forms. I was told by our teacher that the original song was written by Leung Zhan, which may be true, which may be not. Nobody knows. And but it's, in my opinion, it's highly likely because of he chose the 4-character form, and this is something that an educated person would do, a very highly educated person would do, because this is the classical, very classical way to express things, and to put it into rhymes like that takes education too. And the second question was the underlying structure, like paradox.
Underlying structure in the sense of topological.
Well, I'm still in the process, and what I've found so far is that there is parts, how can I put this? Well, actually, the only thing I can say for sure is that the guy who created them made sure they rhymed first, and made sure that you have to have his advice along with the poem. So he did not follow some concept in, for example, pairing things so that you have opposites, or in most of the time they even connected along lines that are maybe 3 or 4 lines apart from each other. So yeah, that's all I can say about that so far.